Hello, my friends, and welcome back to week 3 of the VML. Week 3?
Third,
It's gone by so quickly.
Yes.
It's gone by so fast. I can't believe
It
we're already
really
week
has.
3, but it is our first week of Crimson Vow Standard. So get hyped for that. Welcome to all those who haven't been here before. My name is Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, and I am joined here by the lovely Skybilz. Sky, how are you doing tonight?
Good. I am so stoked to answer the question on everyone's minds. How much has Crimson Vow changed standard, and how much has it not changed standard?
I think we want to see all the additions and subtractions that have happened in standard here so far. So we are going to get into that. But before we do, I want to introduce us to everybody who hasn't been here before. We are the VML. The VML brought to you by the NRG series, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. We are a 10-week long Magic Arena League showcasing the talents of people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. We start this tournament with 64 players. They divvy them up into 8 different divisions of 8 players each. Play goes in round robin for 7 weeks, cut to a playoff for the top 24. And we've got a pretty sweet prize pool here. So big thanks to Channel Fireball and to Wizards for making this possible. If you take a look there, we got $3,500 cash split between the top 16. Our top 8 all gets an arena qualifier weekend invitation and a month of Channel Fireball Pro. Our winner, now this is the coveted prize here, gets an invite to a future set championship. So again, big thanks to Wizards for that. Also a year of Channel Fireball Pro there. And new this season, each competitor gets 500 gems per their group stage match win. So prize pool keeps getting bigger and bigger. With the stakes getting bigger, more exciting. You got to love this. If you're interested in joining us next season, make sure you're following us on Twitter at VMLMTG and follow us right on here, VMLMTG. I am super stoked to just dive right into Crimson Vow here. We've got our Crimson Vow standard cards. Now, do you think Izzet is still going to be on top after this week?
Well, I was thinking about that myself. So here's the thing. Epiphany's still out there, right? So as long as Epiphany is still out there, that is going to continue to be a threat, especially to aggro players, because remember, those 2 birds do get put there. Also, did you know that there is a second extra turn card in Crimson Vow, as if Izzet did not need any further assistance?
Yes, right? Well, I will say we actually, because last week, each match had at least 1 Izzet deck. I believe we showed 2 Izzet Dragons and 2 Izzet Epiphany. This week, we have 1 Izzet Epiphany deck, and then we have 1 other Izzet deck, but there are no copies of All Runs Epiphany in it. There's no extra turns. Not a 1. That's a secret. You'll have to keep tuned in to see that deck. I'm looking forward to covering it, though.
Absolutely.
Speaking of covering, I'm ready to get into our first feature match here. We're going to hop right on over to Division 5. Oh, look at the Batty Bats.
We were talking about that
Love
before
it.
the show started.
Big shout out to our producer, Phoebe, for working her magic all the time. She is an absolute, just genius, and I adore her. So thank you, Phoebe, for all of your hard work. We appreciate you. Let's take a look at our first deck here. Mythic Mikaela bringing mono white aggro, a deck that was very popular last week and just seemed to have exploded this week in popularity. Although something that I've noticed as a mono white player this week myself, there are no lists. There's no one decided upon list. Some people are playing 1 Redain. Some people are playing 3. Some people are playing Stonebinder's Familiar. Some people aren't playing that at all. There is no consensus on what the correct mono white aggro deck is so far. Do you have any notes on this list yourself?
Well, in general, 1 card to watch out for in mono white aggro, and we didn't talk about this before, but this is one of the biggest changes here with Crimson Vow, is Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Did you know that the best Thalia ever printed is now right here in Standard? And we see it here as well. The other thing is some of the more things you want to pay attention to across the board. We do have the aspirants there. We have the adversaries on there. So at least you're going to see a lot of that in common. And then the other question you have to ask is, how much are you going to tax the opponent? And what kind of role might those taxes play? We see this in the main and the sideboard.
Yes, and but we can see that Mono White has definitely seen some success lately. Mikaela picking up the deck because she saw that it had won a tournament and figured, hey, like let me give it a shot, which happens a lot in this week-to-week metagaming tournament. So let's take a look at her opponent's deck this week. Easily bringing Black White Cleric-Pod. This is no, we can't have, we have Birthing Pod at home. Pyre of Heroes. Quite a card. The 2-drop. It really never found a home in Standard until now. So do you have any initial thoughts about this deck?
Well, one aspect of this deck that does give this an advantage over generic mono white so far is that life gain can totally offset what happens. So mono white comes in with a plan, tax and destroy. Whereas here, this deck can kind of afford to play that more of a control role here. We have Clerical Life Spawn, Righteous Valkyrie, just all of the life gain there. We also do have some removal in the sideboard, which may play a role as well. We have the board wipe, Crippling Fear. We also have Banishing Verse. So I would definitely keep an eye out for some of those as difference makers.
Yeah, and one of the things that surprises me is that there really aren't that many new cards in this deck. If you look, it's the 4 Shattered Sanctums, but I think very importantly, it's the 4 Voice of the Blessed, which really makes this deck. So
yeah, that's going to be how many 1/1 counters can you get on? And you could be getting up to 2 of them or multiples in return. You also have the Aspirant there as well, providing those 1/1 counters. So are we going to see a massive version of that card? We'll find out soon.
All right, let's take a look. We're going to head right into the feature match after the Batty Bats fly across the screen. Gotta love it. And we will be watching from the side of Mythic Mikaela on Mono White. A snap keep here. We got 2 lands, 1-drop, 2-drop, couple 3-drops. This hand looks great to me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing some gas from both sides, actually. It's going to take a little longer for Easley to set up, but there is going to be some great gains that happen as a response with the Spellbinder and the Valkyrie by turn 3.
Yes, and we'll see the Luminarch Aspirant quickly pumping up that Usher of the Fallen, getting into the red zone. Easily thinking about the block there, but letting it get through. So Easily down to 17. Drawing a Hive of the Eye Tyrant, the 1 of in the main for turn. And an attack from the, I'm sorry, that is a Chaplain of Arms, correct?
Chaplain of Arms, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was confusing the Chaplain of Arms and the Lunarch Veteran, and now there's one of each on the battlefield. So we're taking a looky-loo at Easley's hands, which we already knew. So Elite Spellbinder has a different Elite Spellbinder to pick from, or a Righteous Valkyrie will get rid of the Elite Spellbinder. Luminarch Aspirant seeing what to pump up here, and it looks like it's going to pump up itself. So the 3/2 and a 2/2 into the red zone. Lunarch Veteran not going to block here, just getting across. Now, one of the interesting things that I wanted to see from this Black-White Cleric-Pod deck is how does it function without pod? Like, is there enough value from these creatures, from these cards on their own? What do you think so far, Skybilz?
Yeah, it looks like Easley's deck is functioning perfectly fine without it. First of all, you do have the slightly bigger flyer that now disappeared here, mind you. But also, it seems to be functioning well without it. The only catch is if you overdraw lands, that becomes a problem gradually. We'll see what happens with the draws here.
Yes, and it looks like 2 Shine Shadow Snarl in the deck, and both of them are in hand. They're really, really awkward, especially in pairs like that. So getting in, and we will see a chump block there from the Chaplain of Alms and the Lunarch Veteran. So Easily down to 7. Looking like maybe a double disturb. No, and we will see the flip side of the Chapel Shield guys get cast here. Flying First Strike, giving each creature ward 1. Intrepid Adversary on the other side, pumping up the team. Luminarch Aspirant pumping up that Elite Spellbinder. And this should do it for game number 1. Mythic Mikaela will take it down on Mono White Aggro as we move into game number 2. Let's take a look at some sideboards. We see an Adeline there, Resplendent Cathar in the sideboard, 4 Curse of Silence, 3 Paladin class, 2 Cathar Commando, 3 Mauled the Skyclaves. one Redain, God of the Worthy, and a Skyclave Apparition. Now, we see a lot of the removal coming in initially, the Skyclave Apparition, more of the Skyclave staying in the sideboard, maybe too much traffic in the air. What do you think here, Skybilz?
Yeah, that might be a little bit too much traffic in there, as you said, but also creatures are going to be so important in this matchup because it's going to be about who overwhelms what board. You just don't want to overcommit because that crippling fear does loom, that one of in the sideboard. So that is something to consider. But I also like the apparitions being present there. Again, the Cathars are okay, but there's a lot of removal in that cleric sideboard here. I love the sideboarding that Mikaela's doing on this.
Oh, it looks great to me. And looks like Mikaela is also happy with it. Thinking about it one more second before submitting and flipping over to the other side. We'll take a look at Easley's sideboard here. Looks like a lot of stuff coming in. The 2 Duresses seem to be staying and the 2 Dawnbringer Cleric. But that would mean 3 Ray of Enfeeblement, 2 Infernal Grafts, 2 Vanishing Burst, 2 Redain, God of the Worthy, 1 Skyclave Apparition, and 1 Crippling Fear, all in here. So do you think this much of like a sideboard, bringing in, almost your entire sideboard, do you think that this game will bode better for Easley?
I think so. And it's funny that we're looking at the sideboard right now. Nicole, you were just asking me about a podless deck, and look at that. The pyres are being pulled out there. That is wild to consider. But yeah, absolutely. So what I like about what Easley's done the most with the sideboard is Easley can firmly establish as the control role here. And that control role is going to be very precious, not only when you're kind of more on the aggressive side in game 2 here, being on the play, but also in game 3 going forward. So very interesting sideboarding here for sure.
All right, speaking of aggressive, that was a 1-land keep from Mythic Mikaela, peeling the second land off the top. Never didn't have it. Gotta love those gutsy keeps, and a 3rd land. And now Mikaela is just golden here. So, well, golden to cast her spells. Easley has also had a pretty solid start going Lunarch Veteran into the Voice of the Blessed. Already growing that. So lots of choices here for Mikaela to make. There's a Luminarch Aspirant and a Thalia, and it looks like Thalia will be the play, unable to get into the red zone with the Usher of the Fallen, just a pass of the turn back. Easley does have quite a few options of their own. Looks like a second Voice of the Blessed, perhaps. Or no, it looks like Righteous Valkyrie will be the first threat deployed here, holding on to that Skyclave Apparition and the Voice of the Blessed in hand. And a Faceless Haven on Mikaela's side. Now with the choice of an Adeline, Resplendent Cathar, or a Skyclave Apparition perhaps to take care of that pesky first Voice of the Blessed. But then you also have a 2/4 flyer. What do you think the play is here?
Well, there's not much Mikaela can do here. Remember when I was talking about the control role? Easley has secured the field in such a way there is no way Mikaela can get through. There is an apparition here which you can use to reduce the voice here, but that still doesn't ignore the 2/4 but that also accumulates life on the field. So definitely good call here. Looks like the apparition, but what Mikaela doesn't see is that there is another apparition on the other side. This is going to be just a lot of exile going on back and forth.
Yeah, it's going to be who has the most exile. And the fact that, Skyclave Apparition exiles and they don't get the creature actually back as opposed to like a Brutal Cathar probably makes a big difference. And it looks like Mikaela will opt to take the Righteous Valkyrie and deal with the Voice of the Blessed, perhaps later on being able to do that while it's still on the ground, while Righteous Valkyrie might prove to be a bigger problem. Now we're back to Easley's side. Easley having a land there, drawing a land for turn. Voice of the Blessed or Skyclave Apparition here. And it looks like a Voice of the Blessed is the play. Double triggers there off of that life gain. So a 5/5 Voice of the Blessed. Thinking about getting in the red zone, and it looks like it will. And Mikaela will let all 5 damage across, dropping down to 15. Redain, God of the Worthy is the draw now. So just able to double spell, but it never feels that great when you cast your Intrepid Adversary and you don't really kick it. So
yeah, that was the thought I had here too. The Adversary is a very tempting play, especially considering if you play the Adversary first and maybe kind of go on the aggro plan with Adeline next turn. The only real gap in this is like yeah, Thalia and maybe Usher can get across the finish line here. But remember, your opponent can gain life and pretty frequently given the draws. And also, these voices are massive right now, and they're only going to continue to get worse.
Yeah, says Skyclave Apparition comes down on the battlefield on Easley's side, is going to eat that intrepid adversary. But Easley's out of gas now. Easley has a swamp in hand, and that's it. On the other side, Mythic Mikaela has 4 cards, 4 plays. This is a, I think this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, agreed. This is actually lethal on board next turn. That is a Cave of the Frost Dragon on the opposing side of the field. It will be all ready to go, and that will be 9 damage in the air should that voice not be dealt with, or at least blocked with maybe the Verdane next turn.
Oh my! I'm gonna take a second and curse these alternate arts because I thought it was a Hive of the Eye Tyrant. So.
Oh, that does happen. No worries. No worries.
But you are correct. We'll see it. Double Luminarch Aspirin here. Gonna stack the triggers. It doesn't really matter either way. Thalia is gonna get both counters, pass the turn back. Ray of Enfeeblement is the draw on Easley's side. And let's see if they see the kill in the air here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason to not go for it? We got Mikaela tapped out. Swamp hitting the battlefield, and it looks like hovering over that cave. Ray of Enfeeblement on the Thalia. So tapping out, just going to get in for 6 in the air here.
Yeah, that's an interesting play, and it's not necessarily the wrong one, especially if the lethal's not apparent, which it's not exactly evident here. Instead, Easley's choosing to kind of go and take some field control instead. Not a terrible idea. And again, when you are under the pressure, this is a very competitive league, folks. Sometimes you don't always see every single play. So again, this is the next best thing, just taking control of the field here by Easley.
Yes, it is wonderful that we have the luxury of seeing everyone's hands. So, so we know what's going on. A Sun Gold Sentinel is the draw for Mythic Mikaela here. Still needing to do something with that flyer, but at 3 life now, both the Voice of the Blessed or the Cave of the Frost Dragon, they're both lethal on their own. So I'm not sure what Mikaela can do to get out of this. It looks like casting Verdane here. Verdane will hit the battlefield. Luminarch Aspirants going to pump themselves up, but not be able to get into the red zone. A Snarl is the draw on Easley's side. Let's see if they choose to activate this land now. Hovering back over it, and it looks like that will be the play. Cave of the Frost Dragon is airborne. There we go. Getting into the red zone. Mikaela knows writing's on the wall. So we're going to have a game number 3 here for our first match of week 3 of the VML. And back to the sideboard. Let's see if any changes want to be made. It looks like Mikaela's going to shave an Adeline and is thinking about bringing in another Verdane. What are your thoughts here?
Verdane is an interesting call here just because it can fly, and once those voices get big, those are very difficult to stop there. So totally understandable here. Whereas from Easley's side here, Easley has successfully assumed the control role, and you're especially going to want to do that again, this time on the draw. So it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. What do you think about the podless version of this deck, Nicole? I wanted to ask you about that earlier since you brought it up.
I think I am very impressed, especially from that last game with Voice of the Blessed. How Voice of the Blessed worked with Lunarch Veteran. Lunarch Veteran on 1, Voice of the Blessed on 2 seems just absolutely bonkers. It is so great. And I actually love that this deck can play some of the best removal in the format in Vanishing Verse. In the sideboard, and also the Crippling Fear as just like an absolute, board wipe that's crippling to, any mono, any mono white player. So it's definitely an impressive showing so far. All right. And it looks like both of our players will keep 7 Lunarch Veteran on the one side and a Stonebinder's Familiar on Mikaela's side. The portable hole going to eat that Lunarch Veteran, and Stonebinder's Familiar are going to get into the red zone easily, down to 18. And going to play the second plains over the flip land, and Voice of the Blessed coming down. So that'll hit the battlefield, and so will Adeline on the side of Mikaela. 2-2 getting in the red zone, and a 1-1 from the Adeline. That'll be just jumped in front of by the Voice of the Blessed. That will eat that and pass the turn back to Easley here. I see quite a bit of removal and disruption in Easley's hand with the Vanishing Verse and this Ray of Enfeeblement, which I think is one of the definitely one of the advantages of this black-white deck over the mono-white deck. As I speak, Skyclave Apparition is drawn by a Mythic Mikaela. So I think this is definitely like a big back and forth, like who draws their better removal and who draws it faster. That's what this matchup seems to be more about. And what are your thoughts?
I think Easley, especially post sideboard, is at a slightly bigger advantage just because of having access to all of the removal in black here. We see the Vanishing Verse, we see the Ray of Feeblement here, and Easley is praising that control roll. And we know that because Easley opted to go for the removal versus the board placement either by the Cleric or by the Elite Spellbinder.
Now, I like the play of the Skyclave Apparition on the Voice of the Blessed because that's a card you definitely don't want your opponent getting back, like they would if the Brutal Cathar were to meet an untimely end. We see Easley thinking about their next move here, and it looks like Cleric of Life's Bond, a card that we haven't seen yet in this matchup yet. A 2-2 for white-black. Whenever another Cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. And whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, Cleric of Life's Bond gets a +1/+1 counter. So pretty sweet card. Pretty sweet card.
It is an underplayed card in Standard for sure. And now, because of this matchup, you have me thinking about is Blacklight, Orzhov mid or control a possibility for the future, even without the pod? Something to think about.
Ooh, now I don't know what you think about this, but Redain was not played as Redain. It was actually played as Valkmira Protector Shield, which prevents one of the damage if an opponent, if a source an opponent controls deals damage to you. But maybe even more importantly, whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability, counter it unless the controller pays 1. So it kind of like gives ward 1 to you and your creatures and your enchantments and everything. So playing the flip side of Redain here, probably more profitable than playing the actual Redain side. What are your thoughts on the shield versus the 2/3 flyer in this matchup?
Oh, this is absolutely the right call here because it furthers Mikaela's plan. The only bad thing is now Mikaela is playing Easley's game here because now Mikaela, instead of putting a creature on the field, is doing something to strengthen board state where the original plan of Mikaela's deck is to be as aggro as possible. So when you start playing your opponent's game, that's when you're going to want to look out a little bit. But of the two choices here, absolutely the correct call here for Mikaela.
Yeah, and we can see the Stonebinder's Familiar doing some work on Mikaela's side, but Easley able to double spell here, playing both a Lunarch Veteran and a Righteous Valkyrie, going back up to 12 life. So it looks like Brutal Cathar is going to have to come down. Elite Spellbinder, the only card left in Easley's hand. Obviously, we know that Mythic Mikaela does not. We'll see what the target will be here. I'd imagine that it's either the 2/4. It has to be the 2/4 flyer, right? The Righteous Valkyrie is going to bite the dust for now. And 5/5 Stonebinder's Familiar are going to get in the red zone. And I don't think Lunarch Veteran even saw that coming. Got run over into the graveyard.
No, that absolutely was the right play there. So Mikaela is trying to get rid of the toughness on the field. Again, this is how Easley won the last game. You had that 6/6 flyer in Vigilance. And while we don't have quite that amount of power, the Valkyrie is kind of a twofold problem for Mikaela. If it were to stay on the field, Mikaela would fall behind on the game while simultaneously having a 4 toughness on the field. So again, another great play here by Mikaela with that choice.
Yes, I love it. Now we will have to remember Mikaela does also have the Faceless Haven that can get in here. Easley's down to 13. Mikaela's at 15. Oh, you know what? I didn't know that. The flip side of Lunarch Veteran, Luminous Phantom, is actually a spirit cleric. So it still is a cleric. It goes from a human cleric to a spirit cleric. So so
Well,
it
isn't
still
that?
triggers, right? Look
Yeah.
at that. It's just all the synergy in the world that they could possibly want. We see, so Cleric of Lifespawn getting a little bigger there. But speaking of getting bigger, the Stonebinder's Familiar is a 5/5, and the 4/3 Faceless Haven both getting in, keeping back that Usher of the Fallen. Seems like not great to just make a 1/1 and Brutal Cathar, because you want to keep that Righteous Valkyrie hidden as long as possible. Oh boy. It keeps getting bigger and bigger, that card.
Yeah, it is also night now too, which is very relevant because did you know that the backside of Cathar has First Strike?
Oh, it is a 3/3 first striker now, Brutal Cathar, and Infernal Grasp also has Ward.
That it does.
that is a very expensive removal spell there. So needing to pay the extra mana, losing 2 life from the Infernal Grasp, and also having to pay the Ward. That is a very, very expensive. That was 5 life, 3 mana. That is something. But if it helps Easley stabilize, it's obviously well worth it. It's better than dying. So Mikaela drawing another land, kind of getting flooded on her side.
Yeah, so I want to go back to the play where Valkyrie was freed for, that not so cheap price. Here's the thing, it's going to pay for itself in dividends because if you stabilize here, not only do you stabilize, but you keep gaining life with each cleric and or angel that hits the field.
Yes, and also because of the flip side of the Lunarch Veteran, anytime that a creature leaves the battlefield, they also gain life. So Easley's going to be gaining life on entering and exiting the battlefield, which is a lot. So we could see Mythic Mikaela drop from 14 real quick. This Elite Spellbinder is doing the real staying like in Easley's hand though. This I believe that they've just had that in their opener and they've just held on to it the whole game. So even deploying it as a 3/1 flyer at this point, probably good enough.
Oh, Elite Spellbinder is one of the better rares going on in both of these decks. It's just not, the tax effect is great, but just that 3/1 can make such a big difference in most matchups. Again, that flying presence there. So, and not only that, it's a tough decision, right? Because you need to think about, okay, well, what is in my opponent's hand? Is it worth it? Because you still want to get that tax effect.
Right. It's a super well designed card, though. Super well designed card. Gotta love it. Elite Spellbinder coming in. That gains a whole bunch of life. Gonna tax the look at the hand, but Easley's not even gonna bother. Well, couldn't pay for it anyway. Sun Gold Sentinel. That is not enough to be able to push through all of the damage. It's too expensive to play the Sun Gold Sentinel, activate the Faceless Haven, and unfortunately, that'll do it for Mythic Mikaela, but Easley's going to take this one down 2-1. So winning both of the sideboard games there, it was definitely very impressive showing by a lot of cards. Like, we didn't get to see one Pyre of Heroes, but apparently that's just like that's just a gimmick. That's just there. The real value is are the creatures. The Clerical Lifespawn, the voice of the Blessed was unbelievable. Like, that card looked phenomenal. And then Righteous Valkyrie, a lot of cards that demanded answers immediately, and unfortunately Mikaela ran out of answers before Easley ran out of threats. So congratulations, good games to both of our players. And we're going to check out our next matchup here as we move on to division number 1. We have Lydia on our Soul Izzet Epiphany deck of the evening. How weird is that?
I can't believe you just said all those words in the same sentence, Nicole. You would think with an added extra turn spell, we would see more of that, but no. Again, folks are trying to take the opportunity when Crimson Vow hits. And as we saw this in our last matchup, it's not only about what cards come out in the new set, but which ones happen to make a comeback. We saw a Pyre of Heroes, for instance, which hasn't had a standard presence lately. So I guess my answer to that is I'm very surprised, given Izzet's dominance in the past few weeks prior to Crimson Vow, that this is the Epiphany deck.
No, and you are absolutely correct. And honestly, like, take a look at the list. It's, 4 Unexpected Windfall, 4 Epiphany. The only real, like, standout addition is a Braid. That's the only thing I've seen. It doesn't seem that many people have bothered with the new extra turns card, the Alchemists, the Splice card. They haven't bothered. Like, they're just like,
Yeah.
no, some lists are only playing 2 and 3 Epiphany at the moment. So, but it looks like the addition of 2 Abrade in the main and then 2 Abrade in the sideboard. And it looks like that's just about it for new cards in this deck. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think
Yeah.
Epiphany was doing pretty well, beforehand. So hey,
Just a little bit.
right until they are forced to, change their list. I see no reason that they should change their list. So Lydia definitely with a solid list here. And let's look at um her opponent on the other side. We have MrsLlante on. This is a spicy one. This one I couldn't wait to see in action because I was like going through the deck list and stuff, and I clicked on this one. I'm like, is that for draft all-star hoarding ogre? Like, I'm all about this. I am all about this deck. I am all about the value, just making treasures. We got Zorn in here. We got Magda doing work, Goldspan Dragon, all of these amazing like treasures. This deck is just so fun. I absolutely love this. Do you have any thoughts about this deck? Because I have like a million thoughts, but I should probably let you talk.
No, please, by all means, keep talking. This is a deck that warrants it. Crackle with Power? When was the last time we'd seen that played in Standard? I don't know if I've ever seen that played in Standard. That's ridiculous, but awesome. The other thing is that there is a focus on treasures as advertised in the deck here. Those things either produce treasures or are a threat or deal direct damage. So the thing I like about this deck the most is it has a plan and it very much does not go outside of said plan. By far one of the most creative decks I've seen submitted so far this season.
Right? Can I get an upstairs in chat, please? Because I'm here for Crackle with Power and Light Up the Night. I actually love that there is no way to flashback Light Up the Night, but
yeah,
it's still like the coolest thing ever to me, and I absolutely adore it. So I cannot wait to see this deck in action. Let's hop to it. We've got Lydia on Izzet Epiphany and MrsLlante on Rakdos Treasures. We're going to be watching from Lydia's side. That is our Izzet Epiphany player. And take a look at an opener here. It's 2.5 lands, but it's kind of awkward because there's Field of Ruin and a Shatter Skull Smashing with the Frostboil Snarl. So, sorry, it's like, and a Jawari Disruption. So it's enough lands, I suppose, to kind of get things going. So kind of got to hope that MrsLlante doesn't get out to too fast of a start, as Lydia does draw a mountain, so that Snarl able to come in untapped. So Fading Hope is online here. Shambling Gas, though, gonna get across for 1, bringing Lydia down to 19. And to turn, it looks like the Shambling Gas will get bounced back to turn, back to hand, excuse me, at end of turn. And in response, going to deny the scry for Lydia here as a Deadly Dispute is cast, making a treasure with that Shambling Gas, making two treasures now. Already with the treasure synergy, gotta love it. Just a land and a pass back of the turn from Lydia. So what do you think of these openers?
Both of them are very much keepable. The only thing I would be afraid of from MrsLlante's perspective is those Grim Bounties are probably not going to do too much in a non-creature heavy deck. It is game 1, though. So MrsLlante, already knowing I have to take this aggro role, goes for the Goldspan. Still a great call, even despite the Jawari here, and that is the plan here. MrsLlante has to assume the aggressive role here because Izzet just feeds on decks not being able to get things rolling right away.
Right? And I mean, MrsLlante, I love that turn 3 Goldspan Dragon on the play. That's pretty sweet. I know it got countered, but that is a pretty sweet play and shows just what the potential of that deck can do. We'll see an end of turn Unexpected Windfall, which is something you never want to see from your Izzet opponent. From MrsLlante's side, a very expensive hand. Also with the 2 old Gnawbone, but right now no treasures to be able to cast anything like that. And the triple Grim Bounty in hand, but Moonveil Regent, the draw and the play for turn. So it looks like that'll come in.
Yeah, I really like iteration here, especially, yep, going right with the unexpected windfall here. Just a fantastic turn here for Lydia. Just so good, making so many mana, drawing so many cards. This is going to set up a multiple Epiphany play if that is drawn in the near future. And with expressive iteration, it is more likely than you think.
Now we saw Test of Talents getting discarded off that unexpected windfall, but the second Test of Talents also being drawn off the windfall. Burn Down the House, though, one of the multiple draws here that Lydia's had in the past, like 30 seconds here. But Fading Hope going to take care of that Moon Veil Regent for now, back to hand. So MrsLlante going to have to start from scratch here. And it looks like Callahan, Reclusive Painter, maybe the play. I'm going to start with that. That will make a treasure token once it comes into play. Going to retry this Moonveil Regent. And no Jawari Disruption yet. Memory Deluge in response by Lydia, and finds the Epiphany and a Divide by 0. That's pretty clutch.
Very much so too. And there was one of two ways to go about it. It worked out either way in favor. You could have iteration that out of the yard, or you could have kept it as is. And it seems to have worked out pretty favorably here for Lydia. I like the idea of waiting just to see if you can get the right draw just off of one copy of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. Lydia was just 1 mana short of being able to iteration again, and then cast All Runs Epiphany. But I think copying it at once might be enough here. Divide by 0, taking care of the Moonveil Regent back to MrsLlante's hand once again. It can't keep it on the battlefield. Teaching of the Archaics, cannot believe it, but Lydia did have less cards in hand than her opponent, and getting in with those birds. So MrsLlante down to 16. There's a Hall of the Storm Giants in play. Got 4 flying 1/1s, and a lot of action and a lot of interaction here. Burn Down the House, unexpected windfalls, divide by 0s. Gonna discard that second Test of Talents. It's not that great in this matchup. And there we go. The other All Runs Epiphany. Gonna cast that. Don't have enough to, but don't even need to flash back that iteration once again. Gonna just get in for 4 in the air and take another turn after this. Jawari Disruption, the draw. Any thoughts?
I mean, why not? I mean, just everything you
Right?
said. I'm just nodding my head fervently. Yes, these are the things that we do. And there's another one.
Ooh. And another Epiphany and an Abrade. Abrade will be able to take care of that Callahan. If not, Lydia had the option of copying a Spike Field Hazard to kill it. But another 8 damage just in the air. And MrsLlante was just a spectator for the second half of that game, unfortunately for her. So we'll move on to sideboards here, though. And what are we looking at from our Izzet player? We've got 2 Abrades, 2 Burning Hands, 2 Malevolent Hermit, 3 Smoldering Egg, a Test of Talents, 2 Goldspan Dragon, and then the rest are lessons. So I imagine those are staying put.
Yes, I would assume that the lessons are staying put. Absolutely here. So a couple things to consider. I'm sorry, I had to give you a little bit about that because I do.
No, you know what? I played a game the other day, and it was like game 3, and I drew a pest summoning, and I'm like, what did I do? Like, I must have fat fingered something.
I see we have the excellent suggestion here by our player to go with the small egg. The crowd is calling for the small egg. Well, you know what, folks? It looks like you're going to get what you asked for. Here comes the smoldering egg.
It's pretty exciting, yes.
Oh, no.
So, oh, no. Oh, no. On the flip side.
Yeah, on the flip side, of course, those bounties are going to go. Again, I had expressed that concern at the beginning of the last match that if multiple bounties were accumulated in the hand, that was going to be bad because you can't really do much with those in this matchup, besides the egg that now just come in. Some interesting things to consider, though. I do see that one of Lorehold in the board, and that's such an interesting card in this matchup if you can get it up and going. Same thing with the Crackle with power. If you went with 4 cracklings, that wouldn't be surprising just because why not just end the game, But then you have to look out for the counter magic as well.
Oh, for sure. But it looks like Lydia did kind of cut down a little bit on the counter magic, taking out at least the test of talents, if not other things. And it's more, like the bounce spells, divide by zero, obviously a big card in this matchup. Because when you're spending big mana and using your lotus petals, like just the one time use, these treasures, they're there and they're gone. That's it. So like we saw the turn 3 Goldspan Dragon from MrsLlante in game 1, it was great, but then the resources she used to cast it were gone. So it feels really bad because you can't even, you can't run back a second one the next turn unless there's some way you can make more treasures. Very interesting hand on Lydia's side here. It looks like MrsLlante will keep the 7. It's double a braid, hoarding ogre, 4 lands. Lydia thinking about this one. There's a Spikefield Hazard and then an island. But divide by zero, really good card in this matchup. Looks like ultimately going to keep. What are your thoughts on this keep?
I love this keep, if only because Divide by Zero, as you state, was the most powerful card in this matchup. And why? Because if everything's coming down with treasures, those treasures will no longer be present anymore. So if you put down an old Naboon early, guess what? You just divide by zero, can't play it again. It's also double green, for instance. And even so much as the dragons as well, even though they will create a treasure, that's still going to be a problem. You're still using up very precious turns in order to do that here. So great keep by Lydia.
And it looks like MrsLlante going to go with a hoarding ogre over the Moonveil Regent after getting in for 1 and bringing Lydia down to 19. So we got a 4/4 hoarding ogre. I am all about the RNG here on the die roll, but it doesn't look like Lydia is going to let that happen. So
yeah, you can't let a 4/4 ogre come your way. So here's the other thing about divide by zero. Remember that you only get that +1/+1 counter from Callahan if you use a treasure to put something out. So now this ogre will come back down as a 3/3 here, and again, just showing that power of divide by zero.
Yes, and a 3/3 and the draw for turn from Lydia was a very timely abrade, so able to remove either one of the creatures as she so desires. Casting the environmental sciences, getting an island, but we'll abrade right now as to not worry about doing it on MrsLlante's turn. Magda, the draw here, and double abrade, not really doing much in MrsLlante's hand at the moment, but Moonveil Regent seems pretty all right.
Yeah, it's a really good thing that Lydia did get rid of that ogre while possible, because that ogre plus Magda, by the way, did you know Magda has other text on it that states if you accumulate enough treasures, you can summon a dragon from the deck? Kind of a really scary card in this matchup.
Yeah, Veilomachus Lorehold would be a pretty sweet summon. I have a new goal in Magic, so I would love to see Magda summon a Lorehold Elder Dragon. That would be phenomenal. So not that I'm taking sides here, because I just want to see it. I don't know, whoever wins, but that's just something I would love to see. It's a goal of mine now. So thank you for that, MrsLlante. As Magda gets in, makes a treasure, gets across for 2. We'll see Lydia casting the Galvanic iteration to copy this unexpected windfall. Going to discard one of the divide by zeros in favor of holding on to the second Galvanic iteration. And your thoughts on that discard? And a bunch of lands, the draws. 3 lands and a Jawari disruption. And
I mean,
so many Galvanic. No, so many Galvanic iterations. Go ahead.
There's so many iterations here. No, I like this because Lydia is playing to win the game, not necessarily to not lose. And that is accomplished here by just, again, maximizing those draws. And while divide by zero is good and all, you probably want to save just 1 copy of that. You are looking for the epiphanies into the win here at this point, if you're Lydia.
Yes. And we see Lydia's at still a pretty healthy 15 life, and we're into turn 7 or 8 at this point. So MrsLlante, like the clock is definitely ticking for MrsLlante to get extra power through damage through, but this crackle with power without a a counter spell or some sort of counter magic in the hand. And it looks like Divide by Zero will target this Magda, but I'd love to see a huge Crackle with Power. A Crackle Power puts it to XXX red. Crackle Power deals 5 times X to each of up to X targets. It's not a lot of words, but it's like way too many X's and math and things. But I know that can do some serious damage. Pointing that thing upstairs. We'll see a Frostbound Snarl hit the battlefield here, revealing a mountain. I mean, do you think Crackle with Power could be MrsLlante's best path to a victory here?
Absolutely. The only bad thing is you do have to look out for that counter magic still. And even though Test of Talents was removed, it's still something you have to be afraid of and conscious of here. But I like the play here. Oh my goodness, just removed some treasures here, forcing the activation. It will still go into the mana pool, however.
Yes. So kind of forcing Lydia's hand, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, that I see what you did there. Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's a lot of mascots on
just
exhibition right now. We'll see it. Magda coming back down, followed by a Zorn, and then a pass back of the turn. Crackle with Power still in hand, the lone card in hand for MrsLlante. Mountains coming down, Galvanic Iteration, and a Galvanic and a Fading Hope to follow it up to bounce both of these creatures back to hand. And even though MrsLlante is still at the starting 20 life, there's 9 mascots on the battlefield, and that's just going to be a little too much to overcome. So Lydia will take this one down with Izzet Epiphany, 2-0. I absolutely loved that Treasures deck. So big ups to MrsLlante for bringing such a cool and innovative deck, and congratulations to Lydia for taking the match down. Good games to both of our players. That was phenomenal. I actually loved watching that.
That was a great matchup because, again, even though the scores didn't look close, a game of Magic isn't just about the scores or the board presence. It's the overall thing. That Crackle with Power was getting really close to going off, and when that goes off, you most likely lose the game. So there was that tension throughout the entire game that I very much enjoyed there. You also had the kind of timer going on where if MrsLlante couldn't get a board presence out and couldn't get enough damage, that's where Izzet gains its most leverage and it will just roll over you. In that case, it was with a mascot exhibition of all things. And I don't think I've ever seen another one. Yeah, I've never seen 3 copies of that in one turn, but that was really cool to see from Lydia.
That was really cool. It was very, very well played from both sides, and that was a lot of fun to cover. I enjoyed that match very much. That was a good one. But before we get into even more matches, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to pop on over to some interviews so you can get to know some of our VML competitors just that much better. We'll take a look at one side werewolves, one side vampires. Are you team werewolf?
Yes, I am.
Are you?
Hey! Yes. I love that.
That is great. So we'll be back in just a few minutes, but enjoy these interviews. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Interview with the Vampire. I am your mistress of midnight, Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, and joined tonight by Mazz. Mazz, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Cool. How about you?
I am doing phenomenal here in this eternal night here. We are Team Vampire. Team Vampire represent.
You're fun to work with,
So
Nicole.
Crimson Vow is running wild now on Standard. It's all the cards are out and everything's going.
Nicole.
Can you tell me,
you're doing great.
What's your favorite card in Crimson Vow Standard at the moment?
I don't want to interrupt.
Right now, my favorite card within Standard is Sun Gold Sentinel. I think it's just like huge addition for mono white. Allows you to mono white to have more interaction against the Epiphany decks and the Dragon's deck. Being able to exile key cards like Memory Deluge and the card with Flashback has the flashback and it copies instant sorceries. That's really big right now. And I think also allows for
that's fine.
more solid 3-2 body, put more aggro on the table.
I don't
have
any secrets. No, with mono white having been as popular as it has been lately, and also that Coven bonus ability, you know, pushing through those mono green decks seems pretty sweet too.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely does just go like it's sort of like I like to say it's sort of hidden within the entire card. Like people don't expect them. Like, wait, what?
Oh,
How's it giving it
Can you
protection from that color?
Hello.
It's like sort of hidden within between the favored text. So that's what I like about Sun Gold Sentinel.
Yeah, I love it. It's got upside to its upside. So now when we're taking a look at the rest of Crimson Vow, we've got a lot of tribal going on. We've got, you know, vampires, we've got spirits, we've got werewolves, humans, we've got zombies. Can you tell me, now it doesn't even have to be in Crimson Vow, what is your favorite tribe in you know, do you like playing goblins or, you know, in Magic? What's your favorite tribe? What do you like to play?
I'm sorry to disappoint my fellow vampires, but it has to be Eldrazi.
Ooh.
Like playing big bodies such as Thornotsia, playing 4/4 me over exile cards and Rally Smasher. I can't say no. That's just got me sold already.
Yeah, who wins in a fight, Olivia or Thought-Not-Seer?
Ooh, I don't know. That eyeball does look mean.
I'd like to see that one. So are you on the side of Olivia or are you on Soren's side? Do you want to see this wedding happen or are we, you know, turn?
I think to be honest, I'm more on Olivia's side.
I like it. I like it. See what you want and go for it. And I hope you do that this season in the VML. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful night and best of luck the rest of the season, Mazz.
Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the newest edition of Who, What, Werewolf. I am once again your hostess of Howls, Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, joined here tonight by the wonderful Dark Flame Ash, member of esports team God Aim. Welcome. How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Hanging in there. You know, getting through this eternal night, as it were. And now the wedding of our afterlife. But then we've got Team Werewolf crashing the party. We have Arlen, Chandra, Kaya, Teferi, Adeline's tagging along. So we got a bunch of planeswalkers and then a +1. Who are you? Whose side are you on here? Whose team are you on?
I am on Team Werewolves, and I stand by Chandra pretty much in any situation.
Oh, yeah? So would you say Chandra's your favorite wedding crasher here?
Yeah.
Hello.
As soon as I heard of Chandra, it really kind of related to me, and ever since then, #1 Planeswalker. I've got about over 30 of her, so... and a few other things.
I'm sure you are not alone there. So is Chandra, the new Chandra, your favorite card out of Crimson Vow so far?
So far, I haven't seen a lot of Crimson Vow. I've only done 2 pre-releases, so as soon as I get more of the cards, I'll find out where I'm going.
I mean, to be fair, she's one of the biggest reveals between the art on the card and, you know, what she's doing, maybe putting mono red on her back and making that a thing again. So we will see.
Mono red's always a thing. It's just how people use it.
That is very true. That is definitely very true. So what has your favorite part of the VML been so far?
Just the diversity. Definitely also the players from different countries. Like, I'm based in Australia, but a lot of my opponents so far is in the US, so it does make time zone matchup a bit tricky, but, you know, connecting with all... Yeah.
Vampires were everywhere.
Yeah, we're all everywhere in the world, and definitely, you know, over this past couple of years, it's been really more important to me to connect with others that are like me or were a bit different. Just because when I started, I didn't see a lot of that. Now I see a lot of that, so.
That's such a wonderful thing. And speaking of those who are like you or different than you, now I know we're Team Werewolf. Is that your favorite tribe on Innistrad? Would you say?
Right now, yes. I have a crazy habit of changing every now and then, but at one point on Arena, I had about 4 or 5 standard werewolves deck. So all sort of slightly different. I do have one trying to be based on nighttime only. So
I like that. It's a good thing to have here in the Eternal Night. So
it is. Definitely matches up quite well.
Now, Team Werewolf has a slight lead over Team Vampires in the VML. Do you think they'll be able to hold on to that?
From the decks I've seen so far, a slight hold. Definitely probably increased towards the end. I haven't really seen much of the other divisions, but I know for Division 3, my divisions, I've seen some strong decks coming out from the Werewolf side.
I like it. Well, we will have to just watch and find out. Dark Ash, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, I gotta hear your best werewolf howl.
Arrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr
Right, you'll start a howl. That's
yeah, start a howl.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you, and hope to watch more, and yeah, go Team Werewolf.
Go Team Werewolf. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We just had a phenomenal break. Took a breath. That was a lot of excitement for the first half. So I am ready to dive into the second half. I hope all of you took your job seriously and went and followed our fantastic producer Phoebe right here on Twitch, twitch.tv/CodeIndigo. Make sure you pop on over, give her a follow, show her some love. All right. She works hard. She is the glue that holds this whole production team together. So big shout out to Phoebe. And she actually is going to be broadcasting tomorrow, and I hope to see some of you there in her chat. Looking forward to it. For those of you who are just getting here, we are the VML. VML brought to you by NRG Series. We showcase the talents of amazing people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. 64 players total. We play round robin for 7 weeks, cut to a playoff top 24, work all our way down $3,500 prize pool to the top 16. We got gems we're giving away, Channel Fireball Pro, and our winner gets the coveted invite to a future set championship. So a lot on the line here. We're in week 3 right now, and we're really we're chugging along. This is a Crimson Vow, first week of Crimson Vow Standard. A lot of great stuff happening. We're seeing a lot of new cards, and we're seeing a lot of not so new cards too. So Skybilz, what is your thought so far about our matchups?
You can definitely tell based on our matchups so far that it looks like the first week of a new season of a new set. And that's always what you like to see. You don't want to see the meta get stale at all. And one of the things I love about the VML is you do see a ton of off meta decks here. And I think one of the ones we have coming up soon is very much a non-meta deck. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't want to spoil anything quite yet, though.
Oh, I cannot wait. But I am ready to get into our next matchup. I just want to remind everybody, thank you so much to Wizards of the Coast, Channel Fireball, and NRG Series for sponsoring us here at the VML. We're going to take a look at Tania, the Blood Sower here with Moist Gruul. That was me. I did that. I have to take full credit. It's funny because it was just Gruul, and I'm like, this isn't just Gruul. I see river glide pathways. So So we got a couple of main deck negates, a couple of sideboard disdainful strokes, and a test of talent. So a little bit of counter magic in here, but the rest of it, a pretty straightforward Gruul deck. We've got Magda's, Jasper's Sentinels, Prosperous Innkeeper, Reckless Stormseeker, Goldspan Dragon, Renin 7, Azika's Chariot, Ranger class. So kind of like your run-of-the-mill Gruul, like, I wouldn't call it Gruul aggro, just Gruul mid-range deck. Do you see anything here that stands out to you? Are there any cards that you particularly like or maybe don't like out of this build?
Well, I said this was earlier. I was hinting at this deck being off meta. However, how the old meta had worked before this is if you weren't playing Epiphany, you were playing Chariot. This is the first time we've seen Azika's Chariot tonight. So I'm really excited to see that one in action. You have the run-in 7s, you have the token synergy. And remember, you can also pick a treasure token to replicate, one that the dragon or the Magda can produce. So you may want to keep an eye out for that synergy as well, too. Otherwise, I really like the removal in the sideboard, the counter. This deck can do a lot of things, and that sideboard, keep an eye on it, can create a metamorphosis into many different play strategies here, ranging from aggression to control.
No, I love that. That's an excellent point, because you look at this and I'm like, I see some ramp cards. You see some like bomb game ending cards and like Run in 7 and Goldspan Dragon, and then you see like your like mid-range and maybe aggressive cards like Reckless Stormseeker, and you have your counter spells. So this deck looks like it's very versatile, and I cannot wait to see it in action. And let's see on the flip side here, we've got another Izzet deck, but I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing any copies of Alrund's Epiphany here.
I wonder what could have happened between now and then. There are some very powerful cards here in Izzet that doesn't necessarily have to be Epiphany and extra turns. And why beat around the bush when you have, what is that, a Hullbreacher, I believe it's called? I'm trying to remember the second part of that. It's
Hullbreaker
so
Horror. Yep.
Or Hullbreaker Horror. Yes, that card is absolutely amazing. It is from Crimson Vow, so we definitely want to pay attention to that. There's also Lear as well in the sideboard. They're just lurking, just saying, well, what if I did happen? And then, of course, let's also think about the other sideboard cards here that are wipes for stuff against Gruul. Very useful here. Battle of Frost and Fire and Burn Down the House.
Yeah, and I would like to point out there it's two copies of Lear, but the full 4 copies of Hullbreaker Horror. So this is just entirely slotting in that Alrund's Epiphany slot. It's just like that. Now it's the new 7 drop. I guess Alrund's Epiphany is like the sometimes 6 drop, but it's also sometimes like the 9 drop because they copy it or whatever. But Hullbreaker Horror, or MrsLlante Pinchy, as I have seen. Pinchy as we have seen him called. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
So it's going to be a very classic battle of control versus aggro. I believe that there will be maybe a little amount of counter magic mixed in, maybe in the sideboard, depending on how game 1 goes and how Tania feels. But I feel like this is just going to be a tale as old as time. Can the Gruul deck defeat the control deck? In this case, the control being Izzet.
All right, so let's get into the action. It almost seems like Tania, after sideboards, still has like almost more counter magic than Brittney will on the flip side. So we're going to be watching from the side of our Moist Gruul player, who ships back that 7 pretty quickly, and we can see Brittney's hand not that attractive either. All those Hullbreaker Horrors in the opener, and it looks like Tania happy to keep 6. Gotta make sure she's recording full screen. Thank you, Tania. I appreciate that from all of us here at production to make sure that everything looks good, which it does. Keeping the 6, and it's a pretty fair 6 layer. The Hydra and Shatterskull smashing the 2 lands at Jasper Sentinel, Snakeskin Veil, Goldspan Dragon, and a Magda. Magda and Jasper Sentinel working very well together too. So, and on the flip side, a Celestis in hand for Brittney, a Jawari Disruption, Divide by 0, Double Mountains, and a Pinchy Man. So what are your thoughts?
This is a very strong ramping hand here, and that's partially because of the Sentinel here. I cannot believe how much of an accelerator this hand is. And again, with the Goldspan Dragon, you were talking about ramp earlier. We're about to see the power of that ramp this turn.
Yes, and we'll see. Is with double Goldspan Dragon in hand, is Tania just going to go for this Goldspan Dragon? And it looks like the answer is yes. Brittney having the answer of Jawari Disruption, one of the cleanest answers. But, oh, no, you know what? There was a treasure left over from the tap. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
That's right. Jaspera Sentinel made 2 mana there, not 1. Math is hard. All right. So Jawari Disruption wouldn't have done much except for it would have been remove target treasure, and that's it. So Goldspan Dragon on the loose here, and Brittney might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, you were talking about this earlier. Remember when you were talking about during the Rakdos Treasures matchup, you were talking about what happens when Goldspan Dragon gets on the loose too early? Well, look at this. We're about to potentially have double here, depending on what move Tania chooses to pursue. Either way, it's going to be a very powerful move.
Yeah, and I see that a Goldspan Dragon, the second Goldspan Dragon, hitting the battlefield here. And there's not much that Brittney can do. So this is a huge attack. A swing for 11. Now, math is still hard, but I think I got it right that time. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. And a Renin 7 and a Snakeskin Veil to protect any of Tania's threats here. But it looks like not much that Brittney can do. Divide by 0 and a Fading Hope in hand. Gonna hope that that's enough. But at 5 life, definitely a precarious situation.
I see what you did there with the hope. And what I was going to say before that beautiful pun, though, is I really like how Tania didn't overextend that turn. It would have been really easy to play that Renin 7 because you know it wouldn't have been countered. But I kind of get the mindset behind that, right? Because you need to have that backup plan.
Oh, and it looks like Rending Flame going to try to take care of this Goldspan Dragon, but Snakeskin Veil at the ready here, thinking about it, deciding whether or not she wants to cast it, because even if this Goldspan Dragon bites the dust here, Tania still has lethal. The only card that Brittney can really have in hand is a Fading Hope. There's also the option of a Spikefield Hazard or a Consider, but neither of those really doing much. And that'll do it for game number 1. Tania with a pretty swift victory over this Izzet control deck. Epiphany lists Epiphany. So
that was a very swift finish indeed. So my favorite part about that is Goldspan Dragon is not exactly a cheap card, and we saw multiples of that. And then, of course, Magda's other ability, being able to summon yet another Goldspan Dragon onto the field, just beautiful, beautiful play there. And again, that was to a Mola 6, something you don't typically want to do, but that was absolutely the right call here. Great gameplay by Tania here in game 1.
No, that was really, really clutch gameplay. I mean, you literally mentioned the thing with Magda earlier today, and I went, oh, that's right. And then you just mentioned it again. I went, oh, that's right, because I can't. So I'm glad Tania is the one driving here as we look at the sideboards, and we see Disdainful Strokes, Negates, and Test of Talents all staying in. So this Gruul deck getting a little more moist, as it were. So and Kessig Naturalist coming in, looking like shaving a Stormseeker, kind of like playing around, shaving 1 card or 2 cards here, adding a card or 2 there. It looks like Renin 7's coming out, just too expensive of a threat. Any thoughts on like shaving an Innkeeper and a Sentinel, things like that?
Well, something does have to get shaved somewhere, and I absolutely agree here. Part of the reason is when you are on the draw here, you want to have to be able to stand back and be able to defend your spells. Now, there is no getting rid of the now beautifully in big text Hullbreaker Horror here during the sideboard. And I don't know, if you're Brittney here, you have to think, well, how can I contain the threat? Going for the Battle of Frost and Fire here and the Burn Down the House. Again, we were talking about those wipes earlier. Those are very much going to be relevant. The only problem with that is Goldspan Dragon will be an evergreen threat with haste on it. So the question is, will it be too late for those cards?
Yes, I mean, as we saw, Tania was a really swift victory in game 1 there. Would kind of make me worried from Brittney's side. We see there's only 1 egg in the list. So that's staying into kind of hopefully come up the battlefield. Battle of Frostenvire is coming in, though. Honestly, a favorite card of mine from Kaldheim. Definitely a fun card to draft with your Giants decks, but it does the job here too.
Yeah, the only thing to really consider, and this is a very tough call given how quickly the Gruul deck can take you down. Hullbreaker Horror, remember, cannot be countered. You have to assume your opponent is going to be putting in counter spells. But I believe, looking at the list right now, Disdainful would be the only thing that would be a threat to a creature. Plus, Hullbreaker cannot be countered. So that's also something to be considering as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tania also might be of the mindset where it's like, well, if my opponent ever casts a Hullbreaker Horror, I've probably lost. So, you know, defending beforehand with like the negates and with the test of talents and things like that might be better. We'll see Tania going down to 6 once again. And that was a mulligan to 6 on game number 1 from Tania as well, from both of our players, actually. Brittney will keep 7, play a tap land, and pass the turn. It looks like Consider will be the draw. Mountain the play as far as lands, keeping open a Jawari Disruption, double Consider, Spikefield Hazard, Celestis. So a lot of like tinder here to kind of get the deck going, but no real payoff on Brittney's side yet.
Yeah, the one thing that Brittney has going is that Jawari Disruption was very key there because, again, that is going to give Brittney way more turns. So, again, that is a deck needs as many turns as possible. So that was pretty big early on. We're going to think about that as we keep going here. Also some removal, it looks like, in Brittney's hands. So, again, Gruul doing the one thing you don't want Gruul to do, and that's drawing extra lands when you need those to be creatures to create a board presence instead.
And now I love this. Tania's seeing that she really doesn't have a big play here on 3. So just activating the Lair of the Hydra for 1 and just pinging, just Brittney down to 19. Every point could matter in this matchup. We'll see Brittney play a Field of Ruin and pass the turn back. Another land, the draw from Tania. So a little bit of a slower hand here in game 2 for Tania, while Brittney, on the other hand, does have a lot of gas, like the Smoldering Egg, a Windfall, the Consider, and Rending Flame as a removal spell. The Celestis is pumping, so able to kind of grind through the deck, find lands if you need them, get rid of the lands if you don't need them. So it'll be interesting to see if Brittney does decide to loot away anything here. What are your thoughts on Brittney's hand at the moment?
Well, there's a lot to consider here, right? I'm sorry, I had to make that.
So not anymore because it's in the graveyard.
Well, hang on though. On that note, that Lear can be played at this point. And you have to remember, Lear can bring back the Considers, can bring back stuff. I would keep a very keen eye on that Lear and the role it could very much be playing here as we unfold game 2.
Now, how many counter spells does Brittney actually have here? Like, is it worth it to Tania to just kind of slam the Skullspine Dragon, which it looks like she's going to do, because the second it resolves, if it is targeted with anything, Snakeskin Veil is now on the table. So it looks like that will be the play here from Brittney with Rending Flame. Snakeskin Veil going to protect that Goldspan Dragon. It is now a 5/5 flyer, going to make treasures and all that stuff. So Snakeskin Veil making a treasure, attacking another treasure, but kind of an empty hand on Tania's side. A little scary. 2 lands and a Shatter Skull smashing.
Yeah, I was just about to address that. Give me the role of the Izzet player in this scenario, most certainly. There are so many plays here that Brittney has available. Now, the downside is Brittney does need more lands here to stay in the game. You have to consider that there is a lot of removal here on Tania's side, and you cannot afford to lose that Lear at this point.
Yeah, it looks like wanting to play Lear, but there we go. There is land number 5 for Brittney here. Lear now with a Fading Hope being able to be cast, but it looks like the land will be discarded. That's interesting.
That's quite interesting here. So Brittney does have a couple of good plays here. While that Lair of the Hydra may seem scary here, remember that Field of Ruin is ready to go here. So it's not exactly in Tania's best interest to activate the Lair of the Hydra here right now. So there's that interesting interaction going on. There's also from Tania's side, do you Shatter Skull smashing that egg before it becomes too late? Looks like Tania is going to be luring out the Field of Ruin here.
Yeah, and it looks like, just getting it done. Tania doesn't have much else to do in hand. She has a Shatter Skull smashing and a Jasper Sentinel, which would be it doesn't make any difference on this battlefield whatsoever. So it's just kind of a 1-2 that might make more mana. And right now, Tania has a lot of mana. So, and it looks like instead of Field of Ruining on the Hydra, it looks like bouncing the Goldspan Dragon back to hand with a Divide by 0. So that's very interesting.
So again, I suppose the play here would be, remember, you can bring back a lot of that with Lear. So just getting those cards into the graveyard and getting it ready for the recast of those spells makes sense.
No, for sure. And now we see another Field of Ruin, the draw for turn on Brittney's side. Also with Environmental Sciences from the Learn from the Divide by 0 on Tania's turn. Lear, so definitely now able to make that 5th land drop if need be, having the Celestis for any sort of mana fixing. It looks like Brittney's getting really close to being able to kind of just take control of this game.
Yeah, and the other thing I had not mentioned is, hey, look, we have a dragon on the field, and it's not the one you think. The egg has hatched. We were talking about the small egg before, but this dragon is very lethal. If you think Goldspan is good, this dragon says, hold my water for me. I'm about to make things happen here.
Ooh, even with 2 Goldspan dragons, though, that may be a bit. Now, we know that Brittney has the Divide by 0 in hand, which makes things a little more awkward. But that will bounce the Goldspan Dragon back to hand. But now Brittney with a Lear, a Field of Ruin, and the Teachings of the Archaics in hand. I don't know if, there's a lot of gas in Brittney's graveyard, but Brittney doesn't have the mana resources to be able to play Lear and do too much besides maybe a Fading Hope. So who do you think's in a better position at this point? Brittney's at 17 life, Tania's at 12. So definitely getting down there. That's only a couple more attacks and spells from this Ashmouth Dragon. Where do you see our advantage bar at the moment?
Right now, I would definitely put the advantage bar at Brittney just because we know Brittney has threats in hand. And we also know that Tania really can't keep a threat on the board right now, which is very much an issue. Also, Brittney's still at 17 life. That's a lot for an Izzet deck at this stage of the game.
That is for sure. And we're taking a look. I mean, Tania does have quite a few options in hand. It's just at this point, she is running out of time. So
yeah, the clock on Izzet is generous, especially when you don't have one that's taking extra turns here. But honestly, at this point, even in a non-Epiphany setup, the clock's pretty much out on Tania for this turn. Because remember, every single time one of those instants and or sorceries are cast, that dragon's just going to keep doing damage.
That is very true. And we'll see Teachings of the Archaics here going upstairs, bringing Tania down to 10. Not much that Tania can do about that. Double draw. We see one of those Hullbreaker Horrors and a Jawari Disruption. So not bad draws on the side of Brittney, but needing to be able to land these threats. That Lear is still sitting in hand, which is I would imagine one of the best threats Brittney can have with such a full graveyard, but maybe it doesn't even need it because the Ashmouth Dragon has now brought Tania down to 6. And Spikefield Hazard just going to go upstairs. This is an aggressive play. Down to 3.
Yeah, life is a resource here. And remember, every single time that Celestius gets a chance to draw in the Discord, that is another point of life, which is very critical right now. And also, if the Lair of Hydra ever gets big, remember that there's still a Field of Ruin that can trade with it. So I still like Brittney's odds here, especially where at this point you want to be drawing creatures. And the counterspell was a very interesting draw, don't get me wrong, by Tania, but is it too little too late here in the situation where you got to go through 18 life at this stage of the game?
Yeah, and I guess we'll see. Maybe Tania will try to draw out a removal spell or a counter spell with this Goldspan Dragon. We'll see if Brittney just casts like a value Jawari disruption as just a shock. A shock, make your opponent pay 1 more for their spell, but it looks like it will just resolve. So Goldspan Dragon hoping to do some defense here. Unfortunately for Tania, Brittney with Leer in hand that can flash back so many other spells, the whole Break of Horror in hand, Jawari disruption, is just too much going on.
Yeah, I think the too much going on is spot on. Now, remember, a lot of folks don't realize this, but remember, Jaspiera Sentinel can defend here for Tania. A lot of people, a lot of even seasoned players miss the reach component on the Sentinel and then miss lethal as a result, or overextend on the board as a result. So that might be something we want to keep an eye on here as well as we go into the last couple turns.
Oh, there are a few things that I hate more than secret reach, but...
It's not a secret. It's right there. It's just, it's really easy to miss because it's a 1/2.
No, if you ask me, it's still a secret. So, but Tania kind of mulling over what her options are here. And it looks like Shatterskull Smashing will be the play to try to take care of this Ashmouth Dragon. Going to be able to pay for the Jawari disruption with the treasure, but not before taking 2 from the trigger down to 1 life. This is a precarious, and now Ashmouth Dragon's gone. Brittney doesn't have any just raw, any sort of like damage dealing off the top. Whole Break of Horror Leer, that all takes a minute. I don't know if there are any Spikefield hazards in the graveyard. I believe there actually is one. Right? Did Brittney go upstairs with it before? But it looks like Disdainful Stroke to take care of this Leer. That probably would have ended the game there with the graveyard Spikefield hazard. So now just a mountain and a whole Break of Horror in Brittney's hand. And Tanya's got another Goldspan Dragon and a Jaspiera Sentinel that can play a decent amount of defense here. Also, the Lair of the Hydra in play. Brittney with both of her Field of Ruins tapped and not enough mana to activate them anyway. This is a precarious. I think this just flipped over real quick.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the best things that caused this game to flip over is the fact that Tania was not afraid to go down to 1 life. Remember, it only takes 1 life to win a game of Magic and does so without fear. I love this confidence from Tania. This could be the difference maker between winning and losing this game. So well done. Very well done on that decision making.
Yeah, and it looks like she's going to do some quick math. And Brittney's going to take 9 here from the Lair of the Hydra and the Goldspan Dragon. And Tanya's going to cast this Jaspiera Sentinel, maybe? Thought about it, thinking about it, and it looks like it will. And a Goldspan Dragon in hand. So there's a Den of the Bugbear, a Lair of the Hydra, a double Goldspan Dragons, and a Jaspiera Sentinel. Like, that's a lot of threats that Brittney's going to have to deal with. And I don't think she's going to be able to... I don't think she has the resources to be able to deal with all of them.
No, absolutely not. There's too much at play here now between the lands, the Goldspan Dragons. I love how Tania has turned this around. I absolutely love it. It looked like a very difficult situation. Again, Tania didn't know what was in Brittney's hand. Only we know this as casters. What a phenomenal set of plays here. Just that real... I don't even know how to describe it. Just foresight of, okay, what defeats me? What calculated risk can I take? Don't take those for granted, folks. This is some real good skills. Real good skilled play here from Tania.
Oh, for sure. And we see a second copy of the whole Break of Horror being drawn off of the Celestis loot. Gonna discard that quickly. Rending Flame going to take care of the first copy of Goldspan Dragon, but that's just not enough. Goldspan Dragon also going to come down. Tania going to check her lands real quick, making sure... Oh, there is enough to Field of Ruin. Excuse me. There's enough to Field of Ruin here. So Brittney does have it's just one act. Nope. Can do it twice, right? Yes. Would be able to Field of Ruin both of the lands if need be. Tania thinking about it before she takes her action and is going to activate this Lair of the Hydra here just for 1. Just a little Hydra. little baby Hydra.
Yeah, this is another terrific play here again from both players. First of all, on Brittney for leaving the Field of Ruin open, being prepared here. And it's just not going to be enough for Tania to win this turn. It goes on. I can't keep up with this one, Nicole. This is a fantastic match.
Right. This has been so back and forth and such a well-played game by both sides here, by both Brittney Davis and Tania, the Blood Sower. And Tania is attacking for lethal here, but Field of Ruin going to quickly take care of that layer of the Hydra before lethal can come across. Tania deciding to take a mountain, leave all this force in, and another treasure will be made off of that Goldspan Dragon attack. Both players at 1 life, and it doesn't get much more exciting than this. Hullbreaker Horror and a Hall of Storm Giants in hand. Every one of Tania's creatures is lethal. The Celestis going to gain a life here. Paying 3, go from night to day. Cinderclasm is the draw, but that's not quite going to do it.
No, and I admire what Brittney went for here too. You could have maybe taken a chance on the Hullbreaker. I'm doing math right now.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that would have been enough to cast Hullbreaker. The problem is that the opponent's still too wide here. Remember, Den of the Bugbear is active right now, and that's why Tania went with the layer of the Hydra there as well too. So again, just a fantastic chain of plays. And again, I want to remind you all, Tania here has been getting flooded quite a bit, quite literally, but because of this land that can turn into a creature, that still turns things around here.
Yeah, Den of the Bugbear makes that all-important extra body here, as Divide by 0 is in the hand of Brittney. Will be able to bounce that Goldspan Dragon back to hand, but it's not going to be enough for all of the other attackers that will be coming at her. We've got a 3/2 Den of the Bugbear, the 1/2 Jasper Sentinel, and the 1/1 Goblin token that doesn't even have to be made because Brittney's going to scoop him up, and Tania's going to take this match down 2-0. That was an impressive showing by that Moist Gruul deck. I'm actually very impressed. What are your thoughts on this Epiphany-less Epiphany? You like blue-red Izzet control deck?
I will say I love the attempt to see what does Izzet look like without Epiphany. There's a lot of powerhouses in the format, and I absolutely seeing it work. However, there's just nothing like extra turns in Izzet. That's nobody's fault. It's always good to experiment. But after further thinking, that was a very fantastic showing by both players. I still like the Epiphany. The 2 bodies on the field makes a pretty big difference and can save life in that matchup.
No, for sure. I do like it, but I do admire Brittney just like going for it. Like a lot of people in the first week of a new format, they're like, I'm going to play 2 of this one. I'll try 1 of this one. And they're not like committing. Like Brittney had her deck and she committed to it. And I love that. And how could you not want to commit to a Hullbreaker Horror? That card's really cool. So, but we are about to get into our last feature match of the evening. We're heading on over to Division 3. We've got a nice, like classic werewolves versus vampires. We're going to take a look at our team werewolf competitor first, Haiyue, of a fellow VML commentator, does commentary for Wizards. She is just absolutely phenomenal, one of the best in the game. If you haven't checked her out yet, make sure you do. Follow her on Twitter at Nefet. And she brought mono white aggro this week, and definitely a very, very popular archetype within the VML this week, and honestly in general in standard. Like if you play on the ladder at all or anything like tournaments, there's been a lot of mono white aggro floating around.
Yeah, I really, really like this version of mono white in particular, and I want to draw attention to that middle question. What do you think is the best card in this matchup? And the response is Valorous Stance. That is from Crimson Vow. That is a reprint, but it is still added via Crimson Vow. And I don't believe we've seen this yet in anybody's 75 tonight. So I want to see, just based again on this answer alone, what role that Valorous Stance will take.
I will say, actually, Haiyue is my teammate on ArcLight Gaming. we worked together, you know, in the burning the midnight oil, as it were. It was like, you know, it's like 1 a.m. on Sunday night or whatever. We're like, oh God, I have to submit a deck. And why can't these mono white aggro players just come up with one deck and I could just hit submit? I wanted to play mono white aggro because I didn't want to think. But the card Valorous Stance, she brought that up to me and I'm like, that is a fantastic card. It's kind of like the white's answer, like it's their Snakeskin Veil. It can protect and it's never dead. So because you can either protect your creatures in the removal heavy matchups, or you can kill the creatures in things like a mono green matchup, which we are going to see here tonight. As Haiyue's opponent is Kayla. Kayla is on mono green, and Kayla also has some brand new cards in the deck here. We have it's a moose. I think it's technically a beast horror. This, I don't even know what to call it. It's scary. All right. The thing it's the thing of my nightmares.
It's a moose on the loose.
Yeah, but they won't call it a moose. They call it a beast. It's kind of like they called MrsLlante is a kraken. I'm like, that's not a kraken. It's like a giant lobster. Like krakens are like the tentacle-y, I thought, and stuff. I did not think it was like this. It looked like it should be on like SpongeBob or something. I don't know. It just doesn't.
Can we just call it a moose on here? It looks like a moose.
I'm just going. It's not. It's just the moose. That's how it's gonna get called this match. I'm gonna be like, Kayla casts the moose, and
I love it.
But besides that, I'm actually very excited to see how the new 1-drop in Ascendant Pack Leader does. That is one of the things that this mono green aggro deck and mono green Stompy, whatever you want to call it, that's the one thing I feel like this deck was missing, was a really solid 1-drop. A lot of times, you know, you wouldn't mind playing your Kazandu Mammoth taps because you never had a play on turn 1, but that's changed. And you can see actually the Kazandu Mammoths are to the wayside now. They're mostly gone in a lot of the lists and replaced by both the Moose and the Ascendant Pack Leader. A little more aggro. And I kind of like it. Do you have any thoughts on these new cards, either the Moose or the Pack Leader?
There's one other new card that hasn't been discussed, and I want to bring that to everyone's attention, and that is Glorious Sunrise. I'm still trying to figure out where that card fits in the format. So Glorious Sunrise is an enchantment that gives you a plethora of options there, and it can lead to a pretty massive card advantage, which if in the mono green matchup here, you're the one who's trying to keep mono white on the back footing. If you can keep mono white on the back footing long enough, Glorious Sunrise can outvalue your opponent on a longer timeline here. Same thing with Ranger class too. So in this matchup here, green has to endure the hardships of mono white. Very tough matchup for mono green. I have played this matchup from the mono green side, and I will tell you it is very difficult. You have to go fast and just hoof it.
Yeah, and I guess we're going to check out to see how. I like that. That was very good. I don't think I could think of any moose puns, but you went and you did it. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's check out this matchup. So we are going to be watching from the side of Haiyue on mono white aggro. On the flip side, we have Kayla, and Kayla looking at a 1-land hand here, going to ship that back, even with the double 1-drops, just not going to cut it. Going to ship it back for a much better looking 7 here. Going to quickly go down to 6. It's just a matter of which card to ship back. For those of you at home who don't know, Glorious Sunrise is a brand new Crimson Vow card. It's an enchantment. It costs 3 green. There are 3 different modes on it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can either have creatures you control gain +1/+1 and trample. Target land can gain tap it to add green until end of turn. You can draw a card if you control a creature with power of 3 or greater, or you gain 3 life. So it's a pretty good, you know, it's a fine floor, and it's a pretty decent ceiling there. It'll be interesting to see if that comes into play at all, and honestly, if it stays in, or if this mono white aggro deck is going to just run everything over, as we see Haiyue drawing First Blood, Kayla dropping down to 18, but a Pack Leader here gonna probably gum up the battlefield just a bit. So any thoughts on these opening turns here? We see Redain coming down on the side of Haiyue.
Yeah, remember when I was talking about containing mono green and how that's going to be very essential to this or mono white, I should say, and how that's going to be essential to this matchup? Well, right here's the pack leader gumming up the board. And again, just a very similar sentiment to earlier, how the Cleric deck was able to hold off the mono white. You need big toughness in order to do that here. And even despite playing this, having to go up against Redain here, love the Blizzard Brawl here, so you can put down your other mana here untapped, because Redain's a very scary card. Just a good start for mono green again. Very tough matchup, but is able to contain the board so far.
Yeah, and double Werewolf pack leader, definitely a scary thing to be staring down, because that would mean 2 cards drawn with every combat, but Portable Hole here to the rescue on Haiyue's side, followed up by an Adeline. So a really solid turn 4 play. Not able to attack into that Werewolf pack leader, but still a pretty solid turn. But a second Blizzard Brawl from the side of Kayla to take care of that Adeline. And now we see Haiyue with just a land and an adversary. Now, when you're flooded, adversary is not the worst card. Werewolf pack leader going to get into the red zone, bringing Haiyue down to 16, followed by double ascended pack leaders and an old growth troll waiting in the wings to grow both of those next turn. We'll see that intrepid adversary come down here. Going to pay the 1 extra 1 time, and let's see if Haiyue decides to get into the red zone, and it looks like she will with just the token.
Yeah, since Usher of the Fallen can make what is now 2/2s here, you don't want to just throw it into the void, especially because a pack leader trades with it, and you don't want that kind of trade right now.
Yeah, a Werewolf pack leader is going to start to draw cards, and that is a little bit scary, but we'll see if Kayla does decide to attack. Let's see. Oh, sorry, it was mana value 4 greater. Excuse me. I thought Old Growth Troll was going to grow it. The pack leaders, it in fact does not. I thought it was power toughness, but it is a mana value that grows those pack leaders. New cards, they caught me, and it looks like Haiyue willing to make that trade.
Yeah, Haiyue very much needed to catch up there. And again, we were talking about, in the case of Glorious Sunrise, if you start drawing cards, you're going to be able to outdraw your mono white opponent in here. And this is a severe flood here for Haiyue. 7 lands, counting the 1 in hand, just not something you want to see if you're the mono white player. You just want to draw straight gas and end the game as soon as possible.
Yes, especially here in game 1. And we see that Faceless Haven come into life and everybody into the red zone. This represents 12 damage and Haiyue at 12 life. So got to make some blocks here. Going to gain a little life from that Intrepid adversary, but at a precarious 10. So Intrepid adversary, also the draw here, which is great. You know, you pump it up a little more and it has lifelink. It'll trade with something here, but it's really only stemming the bleeding and not stopping it.
Yeah, so here the pack leader can no longer attack. There's only going to be 4 into the red zone this turn. Not too bad, especially if you're having a 5/3, but Haiyue's unaware of the second old growth troll. Looking like you're going to need an apparition from here, and that is not it.
No, agreed. So Intrepid adversary kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because those old growth trolls do have trample. So that is a lot of damage threatening next turn. A Naked Elite Spellbinder here, as both players with no cards in hand. Oh, wait, sorry. There's a Sculptor of Winter. Oh, no, sorry. That was the draw. Excuse me. So there were no cards in hand. Kayla drawing Sculptor of Winter for turn. This, even with blocks, this is 4 damage coming through if Kayla decided to attack with everything, but will not. Elite Spellbinder going to jump in front of one of the trolls. Haiyue thinking about blocking with the adversary, probably for the life gain and to avoid getting killed by a pump spell here. There's not, excuse me. So I guess Kayla not playing any of the inscriptions, so no instant speed, any instant speed pump spell in the main deck. She has 3 in the sideboard. So not too much to worry about here, besides a little bit of trample damage, and going to take it to go down to 1. It's definitely scary.
Oh, definitely. Did you just call that Spellbinder naked? I want to make sure I heard that right.
I did. Listen, at least Spellbinder probably partying in Vegas with the rest of them. So what you know?
Oh, what the heck? Yeah.
I'm sure at least Spellbinder knows how to party too. So.
Oh my gosh. Paulo, if you can hear us, we're so sorry.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't listen to me.
So the hardest part about this whole thing is the fact that the old gross troll, remember, you sacrifice the land, you get a 4/4 token with trample here. So this is still a very precarious situation to be in. All is not lost here, though, because that is a 4/3 Thalia with first strike here. I'm very interested. The only thing is you will have to block with both if you want to survive here, because that tramples damage is still quite relevant here.
Yes, but thankfully, before the adversary would die or anything would happen, Thalia has the first strike. Any first strike damage would happen first. But yes, Haiyue definitely needs to gain the life here. But it looks like it's going to be enough to hold back Kayla. And drawing a Sun Gold Sentinel here. Now, that is also going to be a 5-power, so there is no Coven at this moment. Sun Gold going to eat one of the Blizzard Brawls from the graveyard. And it looks like not willing to no real good attacks on Haiyue's side here. Not really in that safe harbor yet. Kayla drawing a Faceless Haven for turn, which might mean something. And another land for Haiyue. Definitely, like you said, flooded out this game. So, oh boy. I feel like this one's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, this one, remember, this can happen to anyone. Flooding is not fun, and no one wants to ever see it happen, but it's part of the game, and it's tough, especially if either of these two decks flood, for that matter, but especially the mono white, with really no way to draw cards or get cards off the top of the deck.
No, for sure. And we got those 2 4/4 tramplers, and we'll see if Kayla is going to get in the red zone here. It looks like no interest in activating that Faceless Haven or anything. So just going to pass the turn back. Let's maybe check some deck lists real quick. We do have open deck lists here at the VML. So, but Skyclave Apparition. That was a pretty sweet draw on the side of Haiyue. And that will also be a 4. So still not turning on Coven, because Haiyue is very close to being able to activate Coven and then just being able to push through the damage. Oh, I guess Faceless Haven could block as a colorless creature, but it's getting very close. This is
this is a very big turn of events here, and I want to point out the card that had started it all, which was Thalia. That first strike is so relevant right now in this matchup, especially because Haiyue held back, went to 1, and kept the adversary on the field right now. Just a very difficult decision to make that's really worked out in Haiyue's favor.
Yeah, and you know what? Like Thalia, at first glance, you go, but it's a mono green like Stompy deck. They're just going to try to play a bunch of big creatures and kill you. But there are really a good amount of spells in the green deck. There's Blizzard Brawl, Ren and 7, Estika's Chariot, Ranger Class, the Glorious Sunrise, a lot of different fight spells and things like that. We'll see another Sculptor of Winter hit the side of Kayla, even though neither player really lacking in mana right now, so the Thalia attacks doesn't mean as much at the moment. But an Elite Spellbinder, and that is an air attacker. At what point do you think Haiyue is going to start kind of pinging in? I don't know that she can quite yet, but I think she's getting pretty close.
It's very close right now. So what's going to have to happen is, remember, that 5 lifelink is still relevant on the field, but it's not exactly a given, because if that goes away, even if it gets Blizzard Brawl, that is pretty much all of Haiyue's defense right now. And this swing.
Ooh.
Wow.
Well, I was like getting aggressive, and like maybe bluffing something in hand, a snow-covered forest there. Adeline, I wonder if that will be enough to do it. Geez, an 8/6 Adeline. So now Haiyue feeling confident enough, maybe perhaps starting to really turn the corner here. Adeline's making 3 threes every single turn, and Kayla is at 16. So the 4-4 going to jump in front of the 3-3 didn't do too much, but Kayla down to 11 here, and with an 8-6 on a 5-3 lifelinker and a 4-3 first striker on defense, this is a place to be, and that does turn on Coven.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we all appreciate the fact that there is a first strike and a Coven and a lifelink here now to defend? This is turning into ridiculous territory here. And again, Haiyue was very, very much strapped for creatures at the beginning of this, running into only lands. And folks, this is why you don't give up. You do the math. You only need 1 life to win in Magic here. This is a very inspirational match and performance here by Haiyue.
All right. This was, about 7 turns ago, we all thought Haiyue probably dead to rights here with all those tramplers and everything on the battlefield, but and getting flooded with lands. But one turn after another, I think that's been a good lesson from a lot of our matches tonight. And it looks like Haiyue is still going to play the patient one, gonna get in with the Thalia, knowing that she has a second copy in hand and the Elite Spellbinder for 5 in the air here, feeling comfortable to kind of swing out for a little bit more. We'll see. And then the 3-3 obviously will jump on the board there from Adeline.
Oh, I get what Haiyue's going for here. So Haiyue drew the second Thalia. Why not make the most use out of that Thalia by playing a second one during main phase 2? This is a fantastic play yet again by Haiyue here.
Yes, and it looks like Kayla really wanted to kill that. And now the question is, does Haiyue want to kill the Faceless Haven or the Trampler? And it looks like it is the Trampler that will bite the dust here. Yes, and the Old World Troll will jump in front of that 3-3 token. So just Elite Spellbinder getting across 4-5, bringing Kayla down to 6. And yeah, things have changed real quick. The second Thalia coming on down, and we'll see. What is Kayla's draw for turn? A 3rd Sculptor of Winter. That's not going to do too much here. And
wow.
Kayla would say that's enough. I'm dead. So that's too many attackers on Haiyue's side, and Haiyue will take down game number 1 in impressive fashion against Kayla on mono green. So we'll take a look at Haiyue here on mono white aggro sideboarding. I love the Legion Angel package. I know that it's she has 1 in the main and 2 in the side, and it looks like she's keeping it that way because you could just board out the whole package, but that is a fantastic package. It trades pretty well with a lot of Kayla's threats, and it just recurs itself too. So I absolutely love it. Do you see anything here that stands out to you?
Well, if you're playing against board wipes, that Guardian of Faith is really neat. Obviously not relevant in this matchup, but that's a really fun card to have.
Yes, no, I totally agree. It's definitely a very well cultivated sideboard on Haiyue's side. Now let's take a look at Kayla's side on mono green, and it looks like bringing in those the Tajuru Blight Blade, excuse me, the 1/1 Death Toucher for 1 as to kind of a way to take care of the biggins that that Haiyue might land onto the battlefield. Gonna leave those mooses in. And
it's a moose. It has antlers. It has a snoot. It's a moose. I'm sorry.
It is absolutely a moose. And it looks like the Rangers class are coming out, as is the Renin 7, in favor of more fight spells like the Inscription of Abundance we were talking about earlier. No need for Outland Liberators, it seems like. Tovolar's Huntmaster, a card that can get out of hand very quickly if allowed. Both of those are coming in. So going a little more, it's funny, because cutting some of the more expensive cards, but then also adding some expensive top end here. Do you have any thoughts on these sideboard choices?
Well, if you're cutting out the high, or adding to the high end, I should say, it had better be worth it. The Huntmaster is very interesting, especially remember, you're going first, and you also have Sculptor, so you have that chance to ramp into it. The only thing that kind of can create a mirror breaker here, or when I say mirror breaker, aggro on aggro, that Ranger class is very good here because it does enable you to draw off the top of the deck. And again, if you are having a top deck war with another deck, Ranger class can sometimes break that. So interesting choice. Again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong choice here, just something to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we saw that would have been pretty useful there in game 1 as both opponents were empty-handed for some time there. And it looks like both players very happy with their 7. Going to kick things off here. Kayla's going to make the first move with a Tangle Florahedron, a card I feel like we don't see a lot in mono green.
Nah, and on that note, really, Nicole, when was the last time we had seen a 1 drop in green that gives us a mana? That's got to be Llanowar, right?
Oh, it has to be from that. That was many moons ago. So,
my goodness, I remember when, you know,
right?
So that's why we don't see the Florahedron too often. It makes us think of Llanowar Elf, and it's just like, oh, but it's so bad value compared to Llanowar. So that's probably why we don't see it as much. Just that mentality, you know?
I totally agree. And then it's like, it's a land. It's like, so I just play it as a land. And, but I mean,
exactly.
Kayla's probably very happy that it came in as a mana creature, as she still has 2 lands in hand and wants to get to that Tovolar that we can see waiting in, or Tovolar's Huntmaster waiting in her hand that we all know about, but Haiyue does not. So we know that there is a Brutal Cathar, however, in Haiyue's hand to maybe take care of it. So we'll see what kind of patience Haiyue will have. Cave of the Frost Dragon, a tap land, a little awkward of a draw here, but it looks like Haiyue probably wanting to cast a 3-drop anyway instead of double spelling. So
you were talking about the Cathar earlier, Nicole. I want to draw everyone's attention to the Valorous stance. Remember, we were talking about this during the interview. That could be the card that could be Haiyue's ticket to winning this game, given the current board state and hand state right now. That Valorous stance does destroy the Huntmaster, and while the Huntmaster does create 2 more 2/2 tokens, we see how 2/2 tokens aren't as potent in this matchup as one may think. So that's something to keep an eye out for with the Valorous stance on the Huntmaster here. Let's see if it comes to fruition or if Haiyue decides to go with the Brutal Cathar here.
Yeah, as soon as that Tovolar's Huntmaster hit the battlefield, we just saw Haiyue's just go right over that Valorous stance, be like, oh yes, I am glad this is in my deck. So, and it looks like Sungold Sentinel willing to trade with a 2/2 cat token here, just to kind of like bring things down a little bit. Portable Hole, the draw for turn. We know that Kayla only 2 lands left in hand, so we'll see a second Sungold Sentinel coming down here. Not going to eat anything as it only has the creature. Haiyue only has the creature in her own battlefield. Valorous stance going to quickly take care of that Tovolar's Huntmaster, and we got a bunch of two toughness creatures on either side now. But a Werewolf pack leader.
Yeah, this is going to be a really messy field here because Kayla has the width, but Haiyue is very soon going to have the toughness and the exile. So there's a couple different avenues next turn can go depending on the draw. You have Adeline, you have Cathar, you have Portable Hole, all things that can deal with a decent amount of Kayla's field at this point.
Yeah, and it looks like that Sungold Sentinel willing to trade again with a Wolf token this time. But Kayla does have double Faceless Haven, and with 1 more land would be able to activate both. So, but not a bad turn here from Haiyue, as I imagine it's going to be a Portable Hole, followed up by either the Adeline or the Brutal Cathar. Both seem pretty good. Portable Hole going to eat that Werewolf pack leader, and it looks like follow-up is going to be Adeline, Resplendent Cathar, as those 2/2s feel, with the Faceless Haven back, doesn't look like an attack. So Adeline just going to get down on the battlefield and be like, I'm the 3/4. I'm here to block all of your 2/2s. So
yeah, if I'm Haiyue here, I am terrified of Blizzard Brawl and Inscription at this point, because right now, minus those cards, this field feels good now.
No, it for sure does. You know, Haiyue has a Brutal Cathar for the next threat of Kayla, but it's definitely scary because, you know, playing Brutal Cathar, playing the Skyclave Apparition, they only get a token. Brutal Cathar, they get the actual card back. And that's terrifying sometimes when you like eat their big threat, when you eat their Tovolar's Huntmaster or something like that, you're just like, man, I really would prefer them to never see this card again. But
honestly, I don't hate the Cathar as a 3/3 with first strike with those 2 Havens sitting there.
It is nighttime right now. You are correct. So a 3/3 first striker is a pretty sizable body on this battlefield at the moment. We'll see what Haiyue decides to do. Only 1 card left in hand for both of our players, but Kayla at 20 life, Haiyue at 8. But we did see how game 1 went. So
yeah, there's 1 card I'm paying attention to right now. And remember, there's plenty of advantage in the air here, and that is that Cave of the Frost Dragon right now. It looks precarious.
That is definitely a threat that Kayla would have some trouble dealing with. We see another Werewolf pack leader off the top for Kayla. That 3/3 that can become a 5/3 with trample and can draw some cards and everything. Even if it trades off, it still feel pretty good to replace itself. And we'll see the second Tangle Florahedron come on down, hit the battlefield, still with the Faceless Haven activation up. And it looks like that is, oh wait, no, are we gonna, it looks like, yeah, Kayla ready. Kayla's like, I gotta close this game out. I gotta close this game out now. So Faceless Haven gonna get in.
And it will here, unless Haiyue's willing to give up a Haven or a Cave of the Frost Dragon here. Looking like the Haven for a Haven here. There is a key word you said in that last sentence, Nicole, and that is second. Because it will become day here, and that will give Cathar more power as of next turn, getting rid of the Werewolf pack leader.
For sure. And we'll see. That is what's going to go down here, the Faceless Haven trades, and we're going to go back to day. And another Valorous stance.
Wow. Ooh. That's pretty big. Adeline can now swing here.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I wonder if, if Haiyue is going to be able to get Kayla to offer up like a double trade with the Adeline and going to just, but we'll see. The Valorous stance, and how many? There's 2 in the main and 1 in the sideboard for Haiyue. But it looks like patience. If nothing else, Haiyue has had an extreme amount of patience in this matchup, holding things like the Brutal Cathar until she feels like it needed to be deployed, and definitely using her life as a resource. But as we saw in game 1, that has worked out for her. And another land from Kayla, and just a pass back of the turn. And back to night we go. Jeez, this is quite the match.
Yeah. Do you notice, Nicole, Haiyue is playing this matchup? Remember how I said most of the time in a match, there's a control player, an aggro player, etc. Haiyue is playing the control role from the mono white aggro role somehow, some way during this. It's really interesting to see, and I like it.
It definitely is. It's definitely such a fun dynamic to watch all the different matchups. That's why I'm glad we have such a great variety of decks here every week. And this has just been an absolute treat. And it's just such a back and forth between our 2 players here. It's just like, who's going to top deck the next card? And this is where I was thinking that you were saying that Ranger class might look good to Kayla at this moment, just being able to play it, pump everything, and then like take a look at that top card. So you don't expect an aggro on aggro matchup to get so grindy, but this is what happens a lot. The battlefield gets gummed up, and it's just who is going to top deck better here. A Snakeskin Veil on Kayla's side.
Yeah, right now Haiyue does have the option to be the aggressor here with the Cave of the Frost Dragon, but also exhibiting some patience here. For sure. Does Haiyue go for it now on the extra land? You bet. Now that there's 2 lands up, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense why Haiyue's waited till this point. And start getting in there for 3 again. Looking very controlly here, right? The tiny flyer getting in for points each turn.
Oh, for sure. Getting in for 3 and making that 1/1 token. That really isn't that consequential at the moment, but could, these tokens could matter later on with cards like Intrepid Adversary, or if the Adeline ever decides to get into the red zone herself. And another land the draw on Kayla's side. So still just that Snakeskin Veil, still just having the Faceless Haven waiting in the wings. Oh, and a second Adeline. I wonder if this is enough to push the first one into the red zone, or if it's just, worth it to kind of hold on to.
I think going for the flying play. That's still a really good play. There were 1 or 2 plays, but I think Haiyue wants to keep the Valorous stance open. And necessarily, if Haiyue does sense a snakeskin veil, which Haiyue's very good at sensing these things, remember, you can use Valorous stance on your own creature, and that can't be outveiled at that point. Then you're just giving yourself indestructible and overcoming the creature that way.
No, that's great. And Kayla says, another land. I can't win from this point. Haiyue going to take this match down 2-0, but good games to both of our players, both Haiyue and Kayla, for a phenomenal match. A lot of patience, very well played from both sides, very impressive, and a great showing from both of them. So, wow, that was quite the match to wrap us up tonight.
I think all the matches were really awesome in one facet or another.
I absolutely love it. I'm loving this new standard format. We had so much variety. It wasn't just Izzet Epiphany decks, and it wasn't just mono white aggro decks too. We saw the Cleric-Pod deck. We saw a sweet Rakdos Treasures deck. We had the Izzet Epiphany deck. There was a real lot. The Moist Gruul, who could forget that, right?
Clerics, everything.
I love Clerics, Potless Pod, and it was phenomenal, and it was and every game so well played by each of our competitors. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. We are the VML once again, sponsored by Wizards. Also, big thank you to Channel Fireball and the NRG series for making this season possible. Y'all are great. Twitter at VMLMTG. Make sure you're following us right on here, twitch.tv/VMLMTG. Check out our YouTube channel. That's posted on our Twitter as well. We've got a lot of great resources that we want to bring you all some more great content. And this was only week 3. We got lots of weeks in front of us. And Skybilz, anybody you'd like to say thanks to, or
well, I'm going to first of all thank 2 of the most lovely people I've been working with tonight. That is, first of all, Phoebe on Tech. Thank you very much to Phoebe for just always making my day, and thank you so much for helping the VML run each week. We are very lucky to have you. And also to you, Nicole, as well. Nicole did a lot of the back work, actually all of the back work on the slides this week, so I do want to thank Nicole for being there. Fantastic friend, fantastic person. Be sure to give Nicole a follow. That is at Lydia the Crease. And of course, to the VML for having us as well. I always enjoy doing these casts with you, especially with you, Nicole.
Oh, that is great. And again, make sure you're following our producer Phoebe right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/CodeIndigo. You can find her in chat. Make sure you're following. She is going to do a broadcast tomorrow night, and it is going to be phenomenal. So make sure you all tune in for that. And yes, I would like to thank all of you, NRG Series, Channel Fireball, Wizards, Phoebe, you are just phenomenal. We all love you. Our admin team, the whole team of casters, our players, and our viewers. You all are phenomenal. And do you want to plug your GDQ thing real quick? Because I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, I have been selected to run Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories 15-card mod at Awesome Games Done Quick, benefiting the Prevent Cancer Foundation in January. That will be January 9th through the 16th. Go to gamesdonequick.com to see the whole schedule. Again, I wear a lot of different hats here, one of them being speedrunning, the other one being Magic, so it comes to no surprise that I'm speedrunning another trading card game along with this. Very much looking forward to that.
I love it. Everything you do, Skybilz, you just knock it out of the park. It has been an absolute pleasure working with you tonight.
Thank you. It's been awesome working with you too, Nicole. And again, y'all, please go give Nicole and Phoebe both a follow again. And for Phoebe in particular, streaming tomorrow, that is Code Indigo. Please give Phoebe a follow as well.
Yes. Well, you all have a wonderful night. We'll catch you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I can say that now because we have bats. So it's really cool. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here, twitch.tv/VMLMTG. Catch y'all next week.